All right, are we live? Yes, well, looks like we are live after all. Well, greetings, salutations, welcome all of my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villain aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to one of my good old-fashioned villains reviews. And today I'm gonna do a review about a certain villain that I wanted to do actually for quite a long time. Ever since the first time I was introduced to this anime in general. Today's villain I'm gonna do a little bit of a conversation with you guys is gonna be none other than Professor Clover. One of I would be honest, like one of my most like recent anime, one of my most recent like favorite anime villains I've seen in recent years. So I thought like, you know what, this villain really caught my attention from his design, overall, his personality, goal, and everything. And I was like, you know what, let's have a conversation, shall we? So here we are. So basically, I give you a little history of the villain. Basically, Professor Clover is the main villain of the Mysterious Joker manga slash anime, also known as Kaito Joker. Even though more precisely, he was the main villain of Mysterious Joker season 1 and season 2. And basically, he is a dark side version of Phantom Thieves. Now, of course, if you are not familiar with what are these like Phantom Thieves all about, well, basically, Phantom Thieves, they're like kind of like a fancier version of Gentleman Thief, basically. You know, fancier version with like costumes and capes. They always send their like advanced notes, basically saying that, oh, like tonight we're gonna steal this particular treasure, to kind of give a fair amount of time to for the owners to kind of like prepare themselves. So when the time comes, they basically begins a race. Who's gonna keep the treasure first. Either gonna be the Phantom Thieves who's gonna take it, or it's gonna be the owner. Challenge accepted. Anyway, enough of Phantom Thieves. Today we are here to talk about the villain of the Phantom Thieves, or should I say the dark side version of the Phantom Thieves, which of course is Professor Clover. Now, as I said before, when it comes to the overall history of Professor Clover's character, basically, like I say, he is one of the main villains of the overall Mysterious Joker franchise. More precisely, when it comes to the overall anime, he is the main villain of season 1 and season 2, and also he is the arch nemesis of course, Mysterious Joker's mentor, Silverheart. And today I'm gonna discuss about him. So now, one of the things that always kind of gets my attention when it comes to like anime villains is of course the designs. And let me tell you, like Professor Clover has like one of the most at the same time bonkers, but then also coolest like villain designs I've seen, like I said, in recent years. I mean, basically he looks like a twisted version of a court jester. I mean, literally, like, he has like a very creepy mask, all dressed up as, like I said, as a court jester with a clover symbol on his costume, and he has a cybernetic arm, basically. So with the exception of the cybernetic arm, he literally looks like a court jester, literally. But overall, like he is one creepy ass villain. A villain that literally has no mercy whatsoever. A villain that always tries to be a few steps ahead of the main hero. And Professor Clover, oh my god, for all like season 1 and season 2, he literally was like a lot, all of those elements, but like on a way more higher level. I mean, one of the things that kind of, besides the villain's design, one of the things that really caught my attention about, Professor Clover is basically how this villain is like I mentioned a few seconds ago, like he always tries to be like a few steps ahead of his enemies, or in this occasion, a few steps ahead of the main hero, and in this case, like he's so far, like he's like hundreds and thousands of steps ahead of the main hero that he was even involved in the overall main hero's origin story. I mean, seriously, like it's very rare today. That's one of the things I have to say. It's very rare today that we have a supervillain that is literally involved in not just simply like in one superhero origin story, but like in multiple superhero origin story, because like literally the guy was like involved with Joker's backstory. He was involved with like Spade's backstory. He was involved with Queen's backstory. He was involved with Shadow Joker and his sister's backstory. Like, this guy was involved with everybody. Like, he was literally the cause of their overall formation of their characters. Like Shadow Joker going to this kind of like, anti-hero path, with alongside, Joker, Spade, and Queen going into this like, Phantom Thieve / hero, journey and everything. Like it's literally like, which kind of also makes him kind of like almost kind of like a one of a kind villain. I mean, well, one of a kind, I wouldn't say one of a kind, like, because usually we use a lot this word today. I wouldn't say he is one of a kind. I would say that he is one of those, like, I would say he is a diamond in the rough. Actually, that's a pretty good word for it, for Professor Clover. Like, he is literally a diamond in the rough, because like I said, even like when it comes to like, fiction, if it's like, from novels to books to comic books to like manga in this case, or anime or video games in general, like in almost every single version of like pieces of fiction, we very rarely see a villain that has like involvement into like the main hero's origin story. I mean, sure, like there are a few, but again, those few are still rare when it comes to like the overall formation of the hero's origin story, not to mention a trifecta going on. Because Professor Clover, he was literally involved with a trifecta when it comes to superhero origin story. Like I said, or even a foursome. Okay, I know that they came out wrong, but like you get the idea. Like he was involved with all of them. But besides like being involved with like the creation of our main characters, like backstory and everything, one of the other things I do have to mention is that I also give kind of credit to Professor Clover as a villain, is that also, that the way how he manipulated and orchestrated, everything around him, like I said, from manipulating Queen to manipulating Shadow Joker to like, using his surroundings, for his own, personal agenda and everything. Like, like even the way how he traveled back in time to basically get a piece of the puzzle that will basically accomplish his villain's goal, which of course I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Like like Professor Clover, like he has guts. That's one of the other things I do have to mention. Like he has guts, and he's also one of those villains that he doesn't mind getting his hands dirty. Because like usually when you have a villain like Professor Clover, usually like they're usually the leaders of a gang, and usually they let their henchmen do all the dirty work, while they basically orchestrate the plans from in the shadows. But in Professor Clover's case, like he, yeah, sure, he's a lot of times he orchestrates plans in the shadows, but also there's a lot of times where you actually see him go like toe to toe with the main heroes and everyone else in action, to kind of, like I said, to kind of basically put it blankly, he doesn't mind getting his hands dirty, and that's also something I respect, with villains, because usually, especially when it comes to like criminal masterminds, which of course is one of the things that I do have to mention is Professor Clover. I mean, if you kind of look at because I did mention like a little bit at the beginning that he is basically like a darker version of a Phantom Thief, because like even though Phantom Thieves, in reality they're thieves. They steal treasures and everything, but it's still like, Phantom Thieves do have like, the sense of justice, the sense of morality, the sense, what's right and wrong, what it's like, above and below the limit, like, what they can do, what they can't do. Professor Clover, zero. Like zero. He has zero morality, zero mercy, zero compassion. Like, he will do whatever it takes to get what he wants, even if it means cheating the Phantom Thieves rules, because like, for example, the way how he used Shadow Joker's sister to basically steal all the treasures around the world, which, kind of, like I said, which kind of simply shows that the guy doesn't care if he cheats, or follows the rules, as long as he get what he wants, he doesn't give a damn at all. Anyway, but one of the other things I also, that I also kind of respect, usually when it comes to like criminal masterminds, well, in Professor Clover's case, I would kind of put him more into like master thief, basically. I mean, besides being a criminal mastermind, I mean, when you look at it as a type of villain, he's not just a thief, he's also being considered a terrorist, as well, because of a lot of the damage that he did. But if you look at basically as like a type of villain, even though I did say, he's a criminal mastermind and everything, but he's also a thief. So you can kind of go basically, go in the middle and say he's basically a master thief. Yeah, I think like the master thief would be like a pretty good, solid, name for a type of villain, as Professor Clover is and everything. But one of the other things is that I do applaud Professor Clover, and that is that the guy has patience. One thing for certain, the guy has patience. I mean, planning something for like decades. I mean, that takes a lot of conviction, a lot of patience, a lot of devotion. And also, most of all, a lot of patience. And Professor Clover has, he has that, and I congratulate him for that. Absolutely. I mean, honestly, like even the type of villain that Professor Clover is and everything, I mean, I do have to also say, if it weren't for like that court jester type of design, I think even with that mask or like a metallic, that cybernetic hand that he possesses and everything that he lost because of Silverheart. Also, not to mention, showing a little bit of the Clover costume and everything. I think you can make him even pass as like a James Bond villain. I can even see him basically, passing on as even as a James Bond villain. Of course, if you take away the court jester part, Now, one of the other things I do have to mention is, of course, the villain's backstory. Now, when it comes to Professor Clover's backstory, it's very generic because, one of the other things that we don't know about him is that, we don't know his overall story. The furthest as we got when it comes to, Professor Clover's backstory is that he was basically a long time ago, he was basically like an agent of an unknown federation. They kind of went into conflict with Silverheart in the past, or should I say, beg your pardon, Agent Heart, which or was it Agent Silver? Wait, was it called Agent Heart? No, I think it was called Agent Silver back then. Silverheart, I think it was called Agent Silver back then. But anyway, one thing for certain, Silver and Clover, they go way back. Like I said, back in the day when Clover was an agent for this unknown federation, and Silverheart was like a secret agent, like I said, very anime style, James Bond, type of secret agent. But when it comes to Professor Clover's origin story, now, like I said, as far as we can reach when it comes to his overall backstory is literally when Silver and Clover, basically met, at this Queen's castle, over 50 years ago, in which basically Clover basically got this mission to kind of I think it was stopping the Queen or killing her or something. I know it was kind of like a assassination mission or something. I know it was something similar to that. But way before that, we know nothing about Clover. Literally, we know nothing about Clover, which I kind of think when it comes to the villain himself, I think that was the biggest flaw when it comes to this villain. We don't know nothing about his past. Literally how he became Professor Clover, how he became even a general, even an agent in this unknown federation, how, this whole idea, came to his mind, like, to become a phantom thief, what kind of drove him into, like, basically using this little girl and the three spheres, to control time and steal all the treasures. Like, like basically none of that, we haven't gotten, we literally didn't get none of that in the Mysterious Joker, like, anime, in my case, at least. We literally didn't find anything about him. Like, like I said, when he was, where he was born, his overall growing up, years, what motivated him to become a villain, like, why, why he became a phantom thief, why he was part of this, like, unknown federation, like, nothing, literally nothing. This is literally a part where basically we can all speculate and make theories, or should I say, like, fantasy level theories, like, about Professor Clover's past, because it could literally be anything, from like, from like, an abused child to a spoiled child to, like, someone who saw a lot of, like, injustice, or someone who was inspired by a, I don't know, like a phantom thief from the past or something, for basically give an inspiration for himself to become a phantom thief. Like, literally it could be a lot of things. It could literally be a lot of things when it comes to, like, Professor Clover's backstory. Now, that's the only part of the villain's review when it comes to Professor Clover's backstory, when it comes to his character, that unfortunately I cannot talk about a lot, because, like I said, the farthest as we went was like 50 years ago, when Agent Silver and Clover met, when they were basically agents on, like, separate sides, basically. Now, now with that being said and everything, when it comes to, like, the strengths and weaknesses, I mean, where to start? I mean, now, throughout the season 1 and season 2, like I said, like, Silver, like, Clover, if I can categorize him personality wise, okay, if I can categorize Professor Clover, I will give him a diagnosis that just simply says absolute lunatic. If, like, that would be like the easiest way to describe Professor Clover. Like, he is an absolute lunatic who is obsessed literally with two things throughout season 1 and season 2. Two things. One is vengeance, and two is, of course, like, rare treasures. And basically he will be prepared to do anything, like whatever it takes to obtain these two goals. Like, vengeance for Silver, because he blames Silver for, like, losing his arm, and of course, the whole dark side phantom thief idea of, like, getting as much as rare treasures as possible, and but also not simply to that, but also, like, the guy, literally he's just simply enjoys seeing, like, other people, like, suffering, like, for example, when he was telling the story about, like, Queen, what should I say, the fake story to Queen, like, how his parents died and everything, and also when he was, like, telling Shadow Joker, Spade, and the actual, like, Joker, like, basically, like, oh, what joy gave me, to kill all your parents, seeing them dead and everything, like, yeah, I mean, this literally why I said, that he is literally, the guy is literally a lunatic. Not to mention, he's a sadist as well, like, what was the, like, what was that one thing he said to Joker when he looked at Joker's allies when he thought they were dead? Oh shit! What was that one thing? What was what was that one line that he said? What was it? Oh yeah, I remember. Okay. I think it went something like like look at the like, oh, like, like, oh, with like a beautiful look on your faces, like, hate me, despise me. Like it was something like that. It was something like that, like which is literally one of those like sadist moments, which literally like brings him joy when literally people hate him. I mean, literally like I can definitely see Professor Clover and Eclipso like having a like blasted good time together. Because like both of them, they enjoy pain and hate and hate and anger and hatred. People hating them, despising them. I mean, yeah, I think like a Professor Clover and Eclipso, I think like they would have make a wonderful duo for sure. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, like he, like I said, he was also throughout the season 1 and 2, he showed to be a very big murderous, like lunatic, who basically doesn't give a shit at all to wipe out an entire city, as well. Not to mention also, he has this very typical like personality in which like he sees every single henchman as a pawn. He doesn't value them, he doesn't respect them, he doesn't care for them at all. He just simply sees them as instruments for his own selfish gains. As he simply sees them as pawns. Which is which, speaking of like strengths and weaknesses, it's a very, very wrong thing to do, because like in usually those kind of occasions, you have the henchmen turning on their own main leader, just because like you treat them like shit. So when it comes to like strengths and weaknesses, I mean, from strengths, throughout like season 1 and season 2, like I've seen Professor Clover being actually a pretty good master of disguises, for sure. He has actually a very surprising high level intellect, also a big amount of knowledge when it comes to time manipulation and magic, and also he proved himself to be actually quite a formidable tinker when it comes to like gadgets and everything, like sure. So so basically, I mean, like the strengths and everything that he possesses, I would say they're all basically from his character to like his intellect and everything, because like throughout I mean, sure, he went toe to toe with like a few times with the main heroes and everything, but like he never showed any skills like hand-to-hand combat and things like that. Like we never seen any of that, or at least I haven't seen any of that. I mean, the farthest when it comes to like seeing him fight I've seen is basically him using guns, or should I say his gadgets. So so I will give him credit for that. But to be a complete villain, like a formidable villain, should I say, is you still need to have some hand-to-hand combat as well, like to kind of sort of like an insurance, when it comes to going up against the main hero and everything. So that's like his overall skills and everything, but his overall weaknesses, I mean, oof, I mean, just for being a murderous lunatic, or should I say an absolute lunatic, being a sadist, like having no mercy, no compassion, no like feelings whatsoever, seeing these henchmen as pawns, like as instruments, like I mean, like the guy literally doesn't give a shit about anybody except himself. That's literally who Professor Clover is. He doesn't give a shit about anyone except himself, and his overall goals, I mean, so which is kind of like, again, it's kind of like a very, very, especially like the type of anime the Mysterious Joker was, which is kind of like a very classic thing, when you have a villain like Professor Clover, because like especially like throughout season 1 and season 2 that I've seen, like he's literally like one of those villains. He's literally like belongs to those like villain clubs where basically they don't give a shit about anything except like their own goals, except their own overall plans and everything, or should I say more precisely, except themselves. That's the only thing they care. So which again, it's, for me personally, I always consider that to be like one of the biggest weaknesses they could have. Literally, because I always said, if you don't want to like if you don't want to have any sort of like signs of like betrayal or mutiny, or just simply being backstabbed, try to treat your henchmen a little bit nicely. You know, try to treat them a little bit with respect. You know, because if you treat them with respect and a little bit nicely, or should I say, villain-wise, correctly, that the chances of being backstabbed or just simply betrayed, or just simply them, just simply giving up on them, the chances of that will be way more smaller, way more smaller. For sure. And also one of the other things, which of course is like, it was seen that like, through the entire, like, the entirety of season 1 and season 2, like, Professor Clover is also one of those villains that, of course, that underestimates his opponents, or should I say, underestimates the heroes. Which of course is a very, very old school classic villain weakness. Or should I say, even like a dumb weakness that usually almost every single villain possesses. Because like I always said, if you want to be a perfect villain, you never, ever, ever underestimate the heroes. Never. Always, every single decision, every single movement, every single dialogue, take everything with a grain of salt. Be suspicious, be careful, think twice, think before you blink, basically. If you want to be a true villain, you have to think like that. Like if you want to defeat a hero, you have to think sometimes like a hero. To kind of like, to basically to know a villain, you have to know you have to know them. You have to put up some muscle, even if it means like intellectual muscle, to study them, to follow them, to kind of see what kind of, type of character they are and everything, what kind of people they are, their agendas and everything, because like through that, you will have a way more bigger chance, an easier chance to crush them, to be a perfect villain. That's what usually you should do. But of course, Professor Clover, nope. I wouldn't go as far as say, like, even though his plan is actually pretty good, but a lot of times, like, usually when you have a villain like, Professor Clover in this case, when you are so much focused on your plan, or should I say on your goals, which means that you're throwing everything around you away. It means that none of those other elements get your attention, which I always thought it was a big, big mistake, which also kind of leads to Professor Clover's weakness, arrogance, which is exactly, what also Professor Clover, possesses as a weakness. I mean, again, I can go on and on and on, but like Professor Clover, he has a long list of like, very classic, villain weaknesses, basically, but I will give him credit, just for a little bit. I will give him credit that he's a villain that thinks a few steps ahead. He's a villain that, as I said before, he has conviction, dedication, and patience to make sure that his plan is perfect. Without any faults of like, or should I say, without any chances to basically, being spoiled and everything. The plan, I mean. So yeah, I mean, like the way how he planned everything, like, from, like I said, going back in time to get one of the spheres, to like, the way how he was behind, like, the overall creation of Joker, Spade, and Queen, the way how he manipulated them, the way, which like I say, if I have to like, give another category, like, when it comes to strengths, he's a master manipulator. For sure. I mean, the way how he manipulated Queen, tried to turn her against, one another's, the way how he manipulated Shadow, Joker as well. I mean, yeah, the guy knows his shit when it comes to like, reverse psychology, master manipulation, and trying to be a few steps ahead. Like I will give him credit for that. For sure. I mean, for over 50 years trying to create all this plan, this entire plan. Well, maybe not like 50 years, but like 30, 20 for sure, to try to like, basically to create and get everything you need that leads you to this moment. That is one Like that is one big ass strong conviction that Professor Clover possesses. Now, the villain's goal. Now, one of the things I usually love about villains sometimes is that I wish they have unique goals. Sometimes I wish they don't have classic goals, like old school goals, which is usually like, revenge, world domination, power and everything. And when it comes to like, Professor Clover's case, it's almost there. It's almost the same shit. I mean, like when it comes to villains' goals, like when it comes to Professor Clover, he literally has like two goals. One is to get revenge on Silverheart because, like, he blamed him for losing his hand. So revenge, basically. That's revenge for you. And second goal is basically to control this girl Rose with, like, those free spheres to stop time so he can steal every single treasure around the world, which of course is power, which is literally a goal that shows you signs of power hunger. So even though it kind of leads to that, I will say that it kind of leads to those kind of like categories when it comes to like villain goals, because like I said, we have revenge and we have like hunger for power, basically, because like trying to control time, which is also one other thing that I forgot to mention, is that Professor Clover possesses a little bit of a god complex as well. I mean, maybe even I will go as far as say a more or like a god wannabe personality. Like especially when he got the spheres, like he literally saw himself as like above everyone. That he is literally a god because he has the power, in which like he can literally control time. Like stop it or do whatever he wants with it. But I will give him credit that is actually a pretty clever way to steal treasure. Literally, like, because since you have time on your hand, literally, since he does have time on his hands, literally, he can literally stop time and go all over the world in like mansions and museums and like, treasury or whatever, and steal whatever the fuck he wants, and no one will suspect a thing, because literally for a lot of people, even if they see the cameras, it would just simply it would simply sound like this, like in a matter of a millisecond. Like for example, a very famous painting, in a few milliseconds, it's gone. Like in a millisecond. So I will give him credit. It's actually a pretty cool way to steal treasure, but at the end, they're still the same thing: power hunger and revenge. But I will give him credit, the overall execution, at least of the second part of his goal. When like I said, getting the treasure, by trying to control time. But basically, also at the same time, like I said, he is like a darker version of a Phantom Thief. Which, like I said, he is one of those villains that he will do whatever it takes to steal the treasure, even if it means going up against Phantom Thieve's rules, which I explained a little bit, like before. Which, with that being said, now we come to the rating. Now, what kind of a 1 towards 10 shadows? Actually, what kind of a rating I can give him from 1 to 10? I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things about Professor Clover I do respect, especially from his design, from his overall intellect, from being a master manipulator, from being like always trying to be a few steps ahead, the way he manipulate like certain characters to try to gain what he wants, the way how he was basically the orchestrator of like almost everything that was happening in season 1 and season 2, especially when it comes to the hero's origin stories and everything. He's also a villain that gets his hands dirty when he needs to be, which again, total respect for that. I love those kind of like criminal masterminds and everything. But even though, like I said, he doesn't have any actual like hand-to-hand combat skills, unless like if you with the exception of gadgets and like also shooting with his gun and everything. But and I will give him credit that he by trying to keep like even though he doesn't give a shit about them, I will give him credit for trying to keep his henchmen in line. Because a lot of them throughout season 1 and season 2, they fucking fear him. So I will give him credit that he was trying to control them through fear, because fear is also a valuable asset when it comes to controlling your henchmen. But not using it too much, because then it would lead to, like I said, mutiny, betrayal, backstabbing, and things like that. So, but anyway, with that being said, with all the weaknesses I said, which are basically, like I said, his weaknesses are all basically centered around his persona and his actions. But I will give him an 8.5 out of 10. The 0.5 because of his design, but the 8 out of 10 because nevertheless, even though, like I said, with lots of weaknesses that he still possessed, I will give him credit for his pros throughout like season 1 and season 2. So I will give him an 8 out of 10. He was a pretty cool, satisfying villain, generic, traditional, but still, he almost accomplished his mission. And he was very, very close, which is another thing I forgot to mention. He was one of those villains that was very close to accomplishing his mission. And for that, I give him mad respect. I mean, I salute him, you crazy mechanical arm court jester. And with that being said, we have come to an end to another villains review. Hope you guys enjoy. Hope you guys, kind of got interested in the character himself, or even like you. I'm really happy to kind of, give you at least an interest to watch the Mysterious Joker anime, even, or read the manga. Overall, I hope you guys have enjoyed this villains review, like I always do. But with that being said, you guys know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, give me your personal thoughts about Professor Clover, your overall opinions about the villain, if you also have watched the Mysterious Joker anime in general, everything about it, just put it in the comment section down below. Also, if you wish to see a previous like villains review episodes from season 2 and season 1, they're going to be in the video description down below as well. And with that being said, stay tuned for more, guys. See you soon, and as always, Lord of Shadows signing off. See you guys next time, or as I like to say, later, fuckers.